A priest up here in Flagstaff on a Sunday morning gave a homily about how everyone makes videos about the chosen ones. And, there's some truth to that. It is a very popular subject in the YouTube community amongst those that love the Lord. But, I'm sure there are a lot of people that are kind of applying the term to themselves when maybe it doesn't fit perfectly. And the one real delineating factor that a lot of people might shy away from is you really cannot be a chosen one if you had a really peaceful, homogeneous childhood where you really fit in on your athletic teams, and in school you were the really popular kid. Teachers really loved calling on you. You're not a chosen one. If you are anointed from birth, you are set apart. And being set apart, I never knew this, until years ago, is very painful. Because you're not like the other kids. Some people describe it as kind of having an old soul. You think about things that normal kids just don't think about. Instead of thinking maybe, what am I to do, when I grow up as an adult? You might be thinking, why are we even here, Something that I heard this morning is, these Bible stories, if you were lucky enough to hear them as a child like I was, these Bible stories are they come alive to you. They're much, much more interesting to you than any fairy tale or child's book. It's these Bible stories about King David and Goliath. It's these Bible stories about Abraham, having a kid when he's almost 100, his first child. And they just, they resonate. And it's kind of part of your being foreknown. And it's kind of like telling you that your life is going to kind of be like these Bible stories, And then when you are an adult, your experience ends up feeling like, not like you're in a movie, but like you're living a Bible story, like all of the great biblical figures you've read about in your past. But that difficult childhood cannot be taken away from this, like the most important 5 factors that you would need to have present to be considered a chosen one and to be anointed from birth, because it's just your crucible, your education and your ability to not be swayed by peer pressure, your ability to be able to stand strong against the crowd, your ability to eventually speak openly and with a voice of authority on the goodness of the Lord. And if you've been on this walk long enough, it just seems second nature. But to most people, the vast majority of believers even, they don't have that courage. And so you were permitted by the good Lord as a very, very young toddler, elementary school. You were permitted to be ostracized, to be mocked, to be someone that just didn't fit in, and to feel great comfort and joy in these Bible stories, and to feel great love from above. Because, with a difficult childhood, you're being abused oftentimes by your own cousins, brothers, sisters, and even your own parents. And so you're trying to make sense out of everything. And it's like, how come my brother gets, to laugh and joke with dad and I don't? All I get is his finger in my face telling me how important he is, how much money he makes, how influential he is. And it's like, I'm not saying anything to the difference. Why are you constantly shaking your finger in my face telling me how special you are? I believe you. You're the most, what do you want me to say? You're the most special person in the whole world. Do you want me to kiss your feet? And even right before I went no contact 3 years ago, my stepfather and my mother would demand, in roundabout ways, more praise, verbal praise towards my mother. It's bizarre. What kind of adult in their mid-80s demands that their child in their mid-50s has to verbally praise them every time they see them, and literally like they're a goddess, And, so this stuff is really, really hard to make sense out of. And my heart goes out to all these individuals that had to go through this without this YouTube community to learn from, because that's how I first started learning about it. I mean, it was about, it was about 11 years ago that I first started finding videos on narcissism, and all the pieces of the puzzle started to fit in. Started learning about scapegoat. Everything made sense. These videos just spoke to the deepest recesses of my soul. So yeah, as I've said in a video that went viral like 8 months ago, we are the grace of God, because we're placed in these families of godless people that have no fear of the Lord and live with some degree of wickedness, corruption, deceit, dishonesty, manipulation, trying to get over on people. And they get very good at reading people and using flattery and setting people up for the fall. And that's that's an essential part of their being, because that's what makes them feel relevant, important, valuable, influential. But you're totally different. They're never comfortable in their own skin because they're wearing a mask, and it takes a lot of work to hold that mask up. Every morning they wake up grumpy because they have to try to remember who they are and what lies they've been telling. And they eventually lose touch with that true identity from God, the identity God gave them. They eventually totally lose contact with that. That's why they're so vulnerable, is because if you punch a hole in that facade, they're ruined, because that's all they have is this fake identity. So God puts you in there as a way for them to see righteousness, for them to see there's a different way. And you love with your whole heart. So you were very, very loving, very long suffering, very sympathetic, forgiving. So even though they, ripped your heart out of your chest and stomped on it right in front of you, and would knock you to the ground, and you'd ask for a hand up, and instead you'd get your teeth kicked in over and over and over, you kept wanting the best for them. And that's just the heart posture you're given from birth. So, thank the good Lord. If you're a true chosen one, thank him for that heart that he gave you. He gave you a heart. God the Father gave you a heart very similar to his own son's heart. Obviously, we are not divine, but we have the good Lord within us. and we will be immortal someday. So we have a different level of, that's what makes us look like we have an old soul when we're just children. So you become much more powerful when you can identify yourself as a chosen one and learn to embrace that. Because then you can just fully accept your mission, which has nothing to do with, you fitting in, you being popular, you having lots of friends, I think it has nothing to do with you having a lot of financial success. That might be part of your destiny because you're mature enough that the good Lord is going to use that material wealth you have in order to bless others. But it's not a given. Everyone that makes videos on this, not everyone, but most people like to say that your day is coming, because it's your financial success and your coming up is going to show all those other people that mocked you and derided you and put you down were in the wrong. And they're going to see God's favor upon you through your financial success. But that's their way of thinking. That's worldly people's way of thinking. If you're truly in love with the Lord, you want to follow what He tells us. And He tells us, the good Lord says with His own mouth during His 3.5-year ministry, stock up your treasure in heaven, where rust will not attack your possessions, where cobwebs, dust, and moss cannot get to it. Because everything we have down here is depreciating, and everything's, losing its value. But any treasure we stockpile for ourselves up in heaven, it's going to be there waiting for us, and it's going to be with us for all eternity. So if you're truly disassociated with secular thinking and worldliness, you don't really care. You just want to do whatever the God's will is. If God's will is for you to have some material possessions and financial success, so be it. If that's not what He has in mind for your destiny and your future, for your time on this earth, that's fine too. Just like Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, please take this cup from me, but if it's your will, so be it. That's the heart posture of someone that is totally disconnected with a secular mindset. So I could keep talking on this stuff all day, but for the sake of time, I'm gonna draw this to a close by just saying, get out in Mother Nature. This is God's tapestry. This is where He put His paintbrush to the canvas, and it is just so good for our soul to get out here. God bless you. Have a good day.